I define spirituality in 3 stages: awareness, appreciation, and action. Awareness that we're part of something bigger than ourselves, that, wow, God was here and I didn't know it. Right? See the beauty in the world around us. Hear a beautiful song, see a baby, whatever, that you are part of something. We are so blessed to be alive. That's awareness. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is you have to give thanks. We're lucky to be here. You got to write thank you notes. You got to let God, and however you define God, I'm not limited in that definition, know that we are appreciative, or the sense of power. But you can't just take it. You got to give thanks. And then thirdly, you have to give back.
That was Rabbi Joe Black discussing the song Endless, which Liz Hanlon and I wrote after being inspired by Psalm 42. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is The Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms or Tehillim inspire in my guests. Joe is not only an amazing rabbi, author, educator, but he's a fabulous singer, guitar player, and songwriter too. Joe is retiring from his position as senior rabbi at Temple Emanuel in Denver, Colorado in July 2025. You can find out more about him by checking out his website, Rabbi Joe Black, that's Joe. Everything else is spelled as you'd expect, including finding his albums Wire and Wood and Praying with Our Feet. His new books and new albums can be found there as well once they're released. Joe and I discuss songs and relationships as divine gifts, and we'll get to hear Joe playing some of his songs, the role of spirituality in creativity, the importance of collaboration, managing dual identities like being a rabbi and a musician, managing dual identities like being a friend and rabbi, exploring the stages of spirituality, the profound insights and personal growth that come from simply having conversations, and so much more. Let's start off by listening to Endless. My heart emerges from the trees and walks down to the water's edge. The wind brings a refreshing breeze. The bird song sounds like sunshine feels. Would you know that I am on the verge? I get down on my knees and then I drink my fill. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. My heart emerges on its knees. I wait for you at midnight, love. The sunshine doesn't speak to me. The birds are silent in the trees. I'm searching in the sky above for stars to quench this greeting need, and then I'll drink my fill. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless, endless, endless drink. I dig my antlers deep into the ground again. I cry and cry and raise the water to the realm. My tears will be my bread each day and every night, until at last I see you in the morning light. Emerging from the trees, we walk down to the water's edge. The wind brings a refreshing breeze. The bird song sounds like sunshine feels. fools. Could you believe we would ever merge? We'd get down on our knees and then we'd drink our fill. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless, 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 endless drink. Hello, my friend. It's great to see you.
It's great to be here. It's really wonderful. Thanks.
We have overlaps in a variety of spaces, which include Torah study and include music. So I'm just going to dive right in with the big question because that's what this podcast is all about. My view of songwriting is that every piece of art that an artist receives or poem that a poet writes is a gift from the divine, however you define it. And I then offer each song as a gift to a friend or mentor, just like yourself, in hopes that it inspires something in you. And I'm sure you have a lot to say, given how creative you are, both as a rabbi and sermonist and as a songwriter. So what, if anything, did Endless inspire in you?
Well, first of all, it's really good to be here. Thanks. Several things. First of all, the idea of sort of being at the side of a river and drinking from that river with a partner. My soul thirsts for God. I believe we experience the divine through our relationships. I'm very Buberian in that way, right? So that Martin Buber talked about how the I thou, the idea that we have a relationship with another person, and that becomes a pattern or a paradigm, even better, or a template for understanding what it is to have a relationship with the divine. So that when we say, my soul thirsts for you, that's a very evocative, erotic almost statement, but it also is a way of saying that, we crave being together just as we crave God's presence. So the image of sort of drinking from a river, I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. I'm thirsty for you, I want an endless drink. Is that meant to another person or is that meant to God? Then I had another image when I was looking at the lyrics and listening to the song, that of how King David was deciding who were going to be the fighters in his army. And they went to a body of water, and those which lapped up the water with their tongues he didn't take, but those who sat up and looked to see if the enemies were there and drank like this. So the idea of how you drink water is sort of a reflection of who you are. Do you do it with, just diving your head and getting all wet, or do you do it being aware of your surround? That's sort of the image that came to me. I'm not sure which is better in terms of relationships. Sometimes you want to dive in. Sometimes you want to make sure.
Yeah, I think Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim, like this, there's a time and a place for everything, but you want to know when to drink looking up, and
Right.
You want to know when to completely dive in and not have any other distractions.
When you wrote this, my question, is it about a relationship with another person that you were thinking of? Is it about God? I mean, I'm curious from your perspective, because, relationships go through stages, right? It's been a long time since I've had a new relationship. I've been married now for a long time, happily. But with that, the beginning, you sort of feel like you just want to swim and be, thirst for that person. And then after a while, you sort of drink like this. I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, for me, look, we both participate in this thing called fearless songwriting.
Right.
And so the evolution of this song started with Timmy's prompt, assuming Timmy led that one.
You did.
Which was Down the Aisle. It had this art in it. It's like a winter wonderland. And right at the top of it, and right in the middle, there are a few deers, hearts, take your pick. As you may remember, most of my fearless songs these days are co-written with Liz Hanlon, and we have a process. Every one of these is different. This one started with me noodling ideas. As the deer pants seeking brooks of water, my soul pants for you, my love. And I can tell you already from that language that I'd already looked up Psalm 42, because in the midst of this project, I have these bell rings that say, this one reminds me of. So I pulled it out and I kind of morphed it. Also did some research about it that made its way into the Sfaria source sheet. as kind of like my first 10 to 20 minutes of immersing myself in this. That was then followed by a stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Which starts off a heart pants loudly, darts between the trees, taking in the bird song, stopping for some sunshine, to munch on chunks of grass, on the hunt for water. And then I move into, again, I think pulling directly from the Psalm, my heart beats loudly, I seek you, my love, wait for you at midnight. I then kind of send it to my better writing half, which is Liz Hanlon. And she then came up with a heart emerges from the tree, a heart, H-A-R-T, emerges from the trees and walks down to the water's edge.
Heart.
Right.
See. Got it. Okay.
And she describes what she sent to me as 2 verses and 2, quote, other parts. Can we do something with this?
Okay.
We then had a conversation, and that led to a lot of moving around, and the ultimate, my heart, as in what beats within me, emerges from the trees. Part of that was Liz saying, a heart is a male deer, and your subject sounds feminine, so let's make it a deer.
Ah, nice. Beautiful. I love that. Okay, so that makes total sense now. I got it. So heart and heart. But then you get to the bridge. I'm trying to think I'm looking here, you don't really show that you're an animal until you get to the bridge.
Correct.
You say, I dig my antlers deep into the ground again. I cry and raise the water to the rim.
Right. Which brings up the masculine feminine thing again, and ultimately why I think while we wrote it with a more feminine perspective, we were silent on who it is until the bridge.
Right. My tears have been my bread day and night. So you quote that. That's directly quoted from the Psalm.
Correct.
Love that. My question is, and listening to the music as well, is this a happy song? Is this a song of desperation? Is this a song of longing or fulfillment? Is it like, oh, I'm so happy, I just want to drink for you? Or am I like searching for you? And are you there? I don't know.
What do you think?
I'm looking at the pre-chorus when you said, could you believe we would ever merge? We get down on our knees and then we drink our fill. That sounds like you're doing it together. Who could thought that a schnub like me could score a beautiful deer like you? Or what's the doe? Doe? Yeah, doe, a deer, a female deer like you, right? Doe and a heart. You could have doe in there too. That would be kind of fun. You could
that would
do
be
some good rhymes with doe. Doe, or you could do The Simpsons. I don't know. But yeah, I think to me, it also seems like it's a new relationship too. That overflowing, can you believe we're doing this together? My heart, Was this written for anyone in particular, or was it?
When I write these, I too have been in a very long-term monogamous relationship. Sherry and I were married 30 plus years ago. So Sherry is my paradigm in this. And you look, after 30 years, you don't always feel like you want an endless drink, but I certainly remember those moments of not wanting to separate. And I think also for me, as I try to write these, I try to write them so that they work on to the maximum extent possible. I think that there are limitations in this one, that they work both for my love relationship or one's love relationship and one's love relationship with God.
Sure.
Now, do I believe God and I will ever merge? Well, that gets into a whole deep philosophical question, theological question. I think that's where it breaks down for me.
Yeah.
At least on this plane. I don't know what happens on the next plane.
I've been doing a lot of work on the spirituality of creativity. I started by teaching at song school.
I remember I went to that one.
You went to that class? Okay, good. So I taught a class at Rocky Mountain Song School where I think we first met, at least in person, on the spirituality of songwriting. And I'm a congregational rabbi, but I'm going to be retiring in July. And my goal is to write the book on the spirituality of creativity, because I think if it's just songwriting, it sort of limits it. So
it's beautiful. Have you read Peter Himmelman's new book, Suspended by No String?
I have.
It's great.
Yes. I am fascinated with the whole spiritual aspect of songwriting as well.
Was that something that drew you to the rabbinate, or did it come up later?
I think later. When listen, I've been a rabbi. I started rabbinical school 42 years ago. I was ordained in 1987 and started in 1982. But I've always been a musician. Like when I was an undergrad, I used to host a TV show for kids in Chicago, a Jewish TV show actually called The Magic Door. Played an elf
Wow.
called Tiny Tove, who lived in an acorn outside of Toraville.
I love this.
This paid my way through school. It was a total fluke. It's a show that any Jewish kid of a certain age, say between the ages of 40 and 70 now, grew up watching in Chicago. And I grew up watching it. And then they were looking for a new Tiny Tove. And I was a Jewish musician doing song leading, and I threw in my hat just for I didn't take it seriously. I didn't think I'd get it, and I got it. So I did it for 3 years. During college, I was always performing, and I was teaching Hebrew school and teaching music. And I actually took a year off to decide if I wanted to pursue the music route or the rabbinate. And I made a decision that I didn't want to be a full-time musician because I didn't like, and I was playing gigs, everything from, Jewish gigs to playing in bowling alleys and clubs. It was fun, but I didn't like the lifestyle. I didn't want to always be looking for my next gig. And I missed the intellectual stimulation and the connection. So that's when I made the decision to become a rabbi. But throughout my rabbinate, I've always been writing and performing. Whether my writing is influenced, my writing is absolutely influenced by my rabbinate, but I don't only write Jewish music, I guess. Like, for example, the song I wrote for the prompt Down the Aisle is not a Jewish song.
Would you like to play that for us?
Sure. Happy to. Let me think of all the steps you took. That's it. The laughter and the crying, tantrums and the tenderness, the endless lullaby, long nights when you couldn't sleep. We carried you for miles. Now it's time to hold your hand and walk you down the aisle. Time moves fast, an old cliche. So much stuff gets in our way. We're bits of light, trapped in clay, burning for a while. Sometimes time will take a rest, treat us like we're honored guests, and show us how we've all been blessed, and walk us down the aisle. As a toddler, you would only wear clothing that was pink. You told us in your loudest voice, other colors stink. Black is more your palette now, that New York sense of style, except for your new wedding dress, as I walk you down the aisle. Time moves fast, an old cliche. So much stuff gets in our way. We're bits of light, trapped in clay, burning for a while. Sometimes time will take a rest. She'll treat us like we're honored guests, and show us how we've all been blessed, and walk us down the aisle. More verse. I think about the way you've grown as you came into your soul. A married woman on your own, you've exceeded every goal. And soon you'll be a mother. I think of that and smile. Hold on to every moment till you're walking down the aisle. Time moves fast, an old cliche. So much stuff gets in our way. We're bits of light, wrapped in clay, burning for a while. Sometimes time will take a rest, treat us like we're honored guests, and show us how we've all been blessed and walk us down the aisle. Show us how we've all been blessed and walk us down the aisle. Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Did you write that for your daughter?
Yeah, I did. And down the, it was a very easy song to write because there was a lot of emotion in it.
Sure.
I just noticed in the song were bits of light that's trapped in clay or wrapped in clay. It's a very Jewish idea that there's sparks.
There's so much Jewish in the song. I was going to ask you about that because I think that for both of us, it just pours out of you.
Yeah.
So even when you're writing a secular song, theoretically, the Jewish comes out.
Totally.
When you perform, do you perform as Rabbi Joe Black or as Joe Black?
That's a really interesting question. About a year and a half ago, I released 2 new albums. One was a Jewish album and one was a secular album, to the extent that anything I write is secular. And the Jewish album was under the name Rabbi Joe Black and the secular was under the name Joe Black. And I actually have 2, different I have a Rabbi Joe Black website, but it was a mistake, I think, to do it as Joe Black. First of all, there's a gazillion people out there named Joe Black. If you Google music of Joe Black, you'll get some very weird stuff. Not weird, but not me. There's a rapper, there's a hard rocker, there's like all kinds of interesting stuff out there. So I think when I perform now, it's always as Rabbi Joe Black, but I will be, retiring from the congregational rabbinate and hopefully doing some touring. And I think I'm going to stick with the name Rabbi Joe Black. And if, that's who I am. That's
I think so too.
Yeah.
And I think Rabbi Joe Black contains within it Joe Black. So,
yeah.
Not everything needs to be frontally Torah.
Yeah. I mean, I some of the songs I write have literally, I have a country tune that's, well, it might have been the food we ate or the fact that we stayed up way too late. Or maybe because we laugh more than we should. I don't know and I don't care, but good gosh almighty, baby, I declare since the night I met you, my guitar ain't never sounded so good. That's not a Jewish song. Right? So, I love playing rock and roll, but it'll be interesting to see what people's reaction, especially those who don't know me, if they come, oh, a rabbi's coming. He's going to, I don't only sing songs that are in Hebrew or overtly Jewish themes. Yes.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to delve into this arena.
Sure.
I was studying to be a rabbi. I left the Parsha. I wasn't religious, and I left any thoughts of rabbiing behind. Yet, here I am all these years later where my friends call me the rabbi. Do you get to turn it on and off? Like with friends and family and even congregants? Because that one I imagine is hard.
Well, that's one of the dilemmas of being a rabbi, or what? I don't say dilemmas. One of the realities of being a rabbi is that I know people who say you can never have friends in your congregation. I don't agree with that. I've served 3 different pulpits. I've been very fortunate. They've all been wonderful. I started out in Minneapolis, Minnesota as the assistant rabbi in a very large congregation. I left there. I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico in a medium-sized congregation, but really it was the largest congregation in town. It was like the center of Jewish life of Albuquerque. And now I'm the senior rabbi of a very large congregation in Denver. And I've had friends in the congregation each time. But there are times, for example, today, that's why I'm dressed. I did a funeral for the mother of a dear friend who happens also to be a colleague. So at that point, while I am this person's very close friend and we work very closely together, I'm also the rabbi for the family. So sometimes those roles are intertwined. And I also, interestingly, as I see myself, preparing for retirement, and the congregation knows we've announced it, I see some people pulling back, because, oh my God, you're not going to be my rabbi anymore. What does that mean? That's strange for me, but I understand that. So getting back to what we started this conversation with, that, all relationships, Wilbur talked about the I thou is reflected in your song, that, you want that your relationship with this person is of that complete thou. You kneel and you drink together and you're thirsty for you want an endless drink. But there are also our relationships that are I it. And most relationships are I it. They are transactional. Then transactional does not mean bad. There is, even as an artist, I'm performing. If I'm doing a concert, people are coming for the performance. Now, it may move them, God willing, on an intellectual or spiritual plane, but there's also, it's a show, and and they're paying money to see me, and I want them to buy my records and my merch and all that. But that's not why I'm doing it, but that's part of it as well. So I see, while I can have very powerful interactions with congregants, sometimes they don't want it to go to the I thou. They want it to be, I am the rabbi and I serve a function in their life. And that's just something, I'm not upset about that. I'm aware of that. And I do have some very close friends who are congregants who I think I crossed.
I used to have this debate with Rabbi Yosef Kanevsky. I don't know if you know him at all. So he's the rabbi at B'nai David, Judea. Before he was my rabbi, he was my friend because we grew up together. We went to nursery school together. We played ball together.
Right.
So there was a safeness with me at the beginning that didn't naturally come with congregation members. And, I think he too believes that you can have friends within your congregation. I think he's more circumspect about it just because he's a very circumspect person. So the people who are his friends, they're kind of on the DL, and he doesn't make the circle particularly large. By contrast, since we moved to Ikar, most congregants view Rabbi Browse as both their rabbi, and I shouldn't say most, but many congregants see her as their friend as well, myself included.
Do you think she sees them that way?
I think she sees some of them that way.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a struggle there because, and I think you encapsulated it well, I think just like rabbiing and sermoning is a version of performing. And so when people are coming to shul, there's the I it, but in order for the I it to really work and move, it has to transcend and transform into an I thou.
Right. And Buber himself talked about how no relationship, even, a relationship with your spouse, is constantly I thou. You can't. Because, I got to watch my wife, I love my wife dearly and we connect and I love her. We've been married for 35 years, 36 years, but I got to wash the dishes. And if I don't put down the toilet seat, she's mad at me. That type of, that's part of it too, so it's a little bit of both.
I want to connect these dots. There's a chapter, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, that describes the different types of wisdom, the ethics of our ancestors. And, one of them is you're a bor sud, you're a lime-covered cistern, you retain every drop. And there are many others, but the two I remember are the bor sud and the ma'ayan hamitgaber, the ever-flowing fountain.
And there's also the sieve, right, that it flows through and doesn't stay.
Yeah.
Depending on how tired I am.
I try not to remember that one.
Yeah.
I try to go between the positive poles. But I think that there are different kinds of rabbis and different kinds of songwriters. Some are the people who take from the cistern and give out the knowledge, the ancient wisdom, and just rework the themes of prior songwriters and forms of prior songwriters. And by the way, that's gorgeous and beautiful on its own. Then there are others who are seeking to create something new all the time. And that's how we come up with the notion of chidushim, new Torah thoughts. For me, what I take from what you're saying is that you need both. You need both the cistern, the knowledge and the craft, as you put it, but you also need to kind of renew it, even if it's not new, because ein chadash tachat hashemesh.
Right. Nothing new under the sun. To me, what makes a great song is it impacts you on an emotional level. I'm more of a lyricist than a creator of melody, although I think I've created some nice melodies over the years. But
I'm going to push back on you on that one. You've got both sets of skills.
Well, thank you. I really believe that if a song is good, if I write a great song, I cry. That's sort of, I know it's good, or the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, or I hear a song like "Listen to Christmas in the Trenches." It's not a Jewish song in any way, shape, or form. That song, if you're not familiar with it, it tells the story of a Christmas Eve armistice during World War I, where the British and the German soldiers played a soccer game, and they crossed the lines and they shared pictures of their family, and then they went back to war the next day.
Ugh.
And it is a chillingly beautiful song.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you got to listen to it. You really do. The question is it the craft? For example, writing sermons. Today I gave a eulogy of the mother of a dear friend just a couple hours ago. I'm very good at that. And I've become very good at it because I've been doing it for 42 years. And I know what I'm doing. I know what needs to be in there. I know what's excessive. I can edit it on the fly. I have a whole series of texts that I can weave into it. I know how to touch people on a certain level by, making sure that they hear me and making sure that I heard them. So that's a craft that I have that I'm good at and I know it. And I'm getting there with songwriting, but I feel like I'm just a newbie, which I'm excited about too. I've written lots of songs over the years, but I really think that now I'm just starting to become a decent songwriter.
Mm-hmm. So there's a difference between writing songs and being a songwriter.
Yeah, I think so.
I see that. Do you turn to Jewish texts for inspiration?
All the time. Yeah.
In your songwriting?
Yes.
In your life?
Yes.
Both?
Well, yes. I mean, listen, I've recorded, I think 8 CDs, 8 albums now, right? And all but one have been exclusively Jewish. But even the even the quote unquote secular ones have Jewish themes. Can I play another tune real quick?
Sure, please.
Sorry. This was the title of an album I came out with. God, it was a long time ago. About 25 years ago. And I had just moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico from Minneapolis. I'll just play it for you. A little bit. In the pueblos of northern New Mexico, the artists show their wares. Sitting on their blankets with their baskets and their bowls on display in the pure desert air. Look very closely, you will see a tiny flaw in their perfect symmetry. Nothing that we do is ever finished. We are all diminished by our own mortality. So whatever you do, leave a little bit undone. Don't think that you're the only one to bear the heavy load. Wherever you go, never turn it to the end. There's always another bend further down the road. And in Machane Yehuda in Jerusalem, every vendor's stall. Look very closely, you can see it there up high on the eastern wall. The painter left a spot of bare plaster, as if to say, I am not the master, I cannot complete this task until my feet lie firm on holy ground. So whatever you do, leave a little bit undone. Okay, it stops there. And that actually is a...
Oh, wow.
Right? And so then the bridge, the bridge goes... מחדש בכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית. So that God renews creation every day. And there was the synergy between, or the connection between Native American, the idea that nothing's ever finished. And there's like a blanket where there's one line of the blanket, one thread is not complete, or one, circle of the bowl is not quite touching because only God can create something, which is very Jewish. By the way, it's also very Amish. It's also Muslim. If you look at Amish quilts, one quilt is often sideways because it can't be perfect, only God. So that's a song. That's a good example of how I try to weave Judaism into others.
Sure. Are you a Campbell fan, Joseph Campbell?
I know his stuff, the myth,
yeah.
not a lot. Yeah.
Because he one of his most powerful arguments to me, and I think it deeply impacted me in my religious and creative journeys, is the idea that all this stuff is in all religions and all peoples and all cultures. And we just have different ways of saying it. And that's, to me, simultaneously inspiring and depressing. Inspiring because it means that there's hope for peace worldwide, and depressing because, well, it's been however many years, billions, thousands, doesn't really matter. And here we are, still in the midst of conflict again. So a song like yours, which both reminds us that God renews the world in goodness, even if I don't understand what it is in this moment, but also reminds us that whatever we're finishing, we're going to do our best, but not necessarily replicate what God can do. That reminds me, that gives me the chizuk, to the strength to hold on and continue finding patience.
The book that I want to write in my retirement, the whole idea is that I define spirituality in 3 stages: awareness, appreciation, and action. Awareness that we're part of something bigger than ourselves, that, wow, God was here and I didn't know it. Right? See the beauty in the world around us. Hear a beautiful song, see a baby, whatever, that you are part of something. We are so blessed to be alive. That's awareness. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is you have to give thanks. We're lucky to be here. You got to write thank you notes. You got to let God, and however you define God, I'm not limited in that definition, know that we are appreciative, or the sense of power. But you can't just take it. You got to give thanks. And then thirdly, you have to give back. And you give back in many ways. And as creatives, and I think I agree with Rick Rubin that everyone is a creative. Everyone is a creator. That's how we give back. And if we give back with an awareness that this is a gift that's been given to us, and how we work on giving back and how we work on that process is part of it. So that's part 1. And the other one is, I also believe that those liminal moments in our lives, that in-betweenness, are the moments when we are uncomfortable sometimes. Right now, I am about to enter into a brand new phase of life. It scares the shit out of me.
Sure.
But I'm really excited about it. I'm not where I was, and I'm not where I'm going to be. I'm this here. I'm in between, right? That is where creativity comes from. And we find that in almost every tradition, right? 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. Jesus going off into being tempted.
Also in the wilderness.
Right, exactly. And that idea of, why was the Torah given in the wilderness? Because it's that in-betweenness. We need to find those liminal moments in our lives, whether we experience them directly because of life events, or we find a ritual practice that puts us in that place. That's what meditation is about. That is what study can be and should be about, what chavruta can and should be about. So that's another form of where creativity comes from. And the opposite of spirituality is idolatry. Because idolatry says, I don't need anything else. It all comes from within me. Idolatry says, I can build this with my own hands, and it's mine. It's my creation. Nothing is mine. Everything I create comes from someplace else. And when you are aware of that and appreciative of that, you have no choice but to give back. That's the thesis of my book.
It's beautiful. I can't wait to read it.
Me neither. I can't wait to write it.
I foresee, by the way, that you're going to do much more than write a book and come out with more albums. The next chapter of Rabbi Joe Black, I foresee lots of possibilities.
I'm excited about it.
As you should be. Me too. Can you say a bit more about meditation and study? Specifically, first of all, do you meditate? I know you study.
No, I have meditated. I don't have the patience right now. That's something I hope to be able to do more of. I don't have to make it a regular practice. But I could say that I can sit down, pick up my guitar, or sit at a piano, and 2 hours later just realize, my God, where was I? So I'll lose myself in that. So I don't have a formal process. I guess I'm going to give you a Rosenzweigian answer. When somebody asked him, do you keep kosher? And he said, not yet. So do I meditate? Not yet.
I want to reframe your answer because I think you do. You just don't formally, and that's okay too. Like everyone has their way. Some people do the candle meditation. Some people listen to Sam Harris, whatever. You have to find what works for you. And I would say that while I've never seen you write a sermon, I bet there's a meditative aspect to that.
Could be.
I learned this from a friend of mine in law school. Everybody tests differently. My approach was I would read the first question, then I'd read the second question, however many questions there were. These are for the essay exams. I would read them, then I'd go back and I'd read the first one, and then I would just stare at the ceiling for 20 minutes, and every once in a while I'd get up and I'd jot notes. My friends used to come to me afterwards and say, "You're making me nervous."
I would agree with that. If I was taking a test and was walking around and doing that, I would too.
For me, I need that meditation. It's not thinking. On the contrary, I was looking for my brain to explode with thought and make the connections that often come up in songwriting, how you get from, a heart drinking to finding your love and so on and so forth, which is why I often start with streams of consciousness in response to a prompt. Sometimes it's the Tehillim, sometimes it's the Tehillim and Timmy or other things. I've had an explosion of creativity in response to the death of a dear friend in May. I've written God knows how many songs, or started to write, and I've finished at least 10. It's all my way of processing the loss of this friend who I fully expected to retire with. This is Ivan Wolkind. This has been fabulous. Is there anything else you want to cover?
We've come from heart emerging from the trees and drinking from the water to have come a long way, which is great. Well, that's how the process works.
Yeah, agreed. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It was a really beautiful conversation. Can't wait to see what comes up for you. And my bracha to you, if I may, is that you remain the Ma'ayan HaMitkaber, who retains everything, and also remain the Ma'ayan HaMitkaber, the one who creates new things in song, in books, in podcasts, in non-formal rabbi sermons, but also the Bor Sud that has the wealth of knowledge and warmth and spiritual experience that you have.
Well, thank you, Shep. It's an honor. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Rabbi Joe Black for joining me, to Liz Hanlon for co-writing Endless with me, to David Coyle and E. Rose for their help in producing this episode, and to Jessica Chana Sweedler for her help on social media. You can find Endless and all of the other songs in this song cycle on most platforms that stream or download music, including Spotify and Apple. The next episode of The Rest is Commentary is a special release in the wake of the anti-Semitic attack in Boulder, Colorado on June 1st, 2025. My guest will be Rabbanit Alyssa Thomas Newborn. The episode is dedicated to the demonstrators who walked down Pearl Street and wherever else in the world people are expressing support for Israel, Jew and non-Jew alike, and to anyone, frankly, who speaks up as an ally of the Jewish community and Israel in this time of crisis. Alyssa and I will be discussing The Golden Rule, a song I posted privately after Shari and I and about 15 other members of the Oxnard Jewish community participated in a meeting organized by the Oxnard City Council in January 2024, in which alleged Palestinian supporters bust in from other communities sought to silence the Oxnard Jewish minority. It was the first time in years I'd confronted anti-Semitism directly. Alyssa and I discuss the role of music in exploring social issues, the exhaustion felt by the Jewish community and other communities in times of crisis, the complexities of hate and understanding, the impact of trauma on communication, the importance of understanding each other's suffering, October 7th, and anti-Semitism, the need for constructive dialogue, especially in difficult times, parenting amidst trauma and the hope that arises from creating life and goodness in the face of adversity. All inspired by Alyssa's thoughts after listening to The Golden Rule, inspired by Psalm 109 as well. Please join us.